Please say no to digital ID. 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 Please say no to digital ID.
This short film asks a simple question. What changes when identity becomes digital? And who holds the off switch?
Tonight, UK Prime Minister Sir Insincere Starmer is set to announce the worst kept secret in the universe at the Labour Party conference this weekend. The pasty-faced fluffer of Klaus Blair is expected to take to the stage to propose the introduction of digital ID. But why? I hear you cry. No one actually wants digital ID. There's no nationwide scurry for even more state control over our lives. No, but since when has what the people wanted been anywhere in the minds of the parasite class, let alone the forefront? They are long planned and they will signify a critical step on the ladder to full-blown dystopia. Who decides what doing anything wrong means? We live in an authoritarian society as it is, a country where our words and thoughts are policed with even more ferocity than the actions of those in expensive suits and with establishment lanyards. And you're telling me that with another layer of control and the ability to digitally exclude dissidents from day-to-day functionality, that they won't use that power and wield it like a bloody axe? Of course they will. And it's only one step towards what this ID will ultimately connect into: your medical history, whether you're up to date with your 78th booster, are your kids vaccinated, what's your carbon footprint, do you drive too much, how many flights have you taken this year, what's your social media activity like, who have you been listening to?
Now, the Prime Minister is set to confirm that digital ID cards will be made mandatory for all adults in the UK today under new plans to help tackle what they call illegal migration.
Anyone starting a job will need to show their so-called brick card, that's what they're calling it at the moment, to prove they have the right to live and work in the UK.
Emergency powers set precedents. Once normalised, they rarely roll back.
Back in the 1990s, I coined a phrase, problem, reaction, solution, in which you covertly create a problem, blame someone else for it. And at stage 2, you're looking for a reaction from the public, which basically says, do something about the problem you have covertly created. And that allows you at stage 3 to offer the solution to the problems you have created, but blame someone else for. And events like 9/11 are monumental examples of problem, reaction, solution, where you create the problem and then your solution is devastation, mayhem, death and destruction in the Middle East as a reaction to the people you blame for it.
The state's control over our lives has grown at an alarming rate in recent years. The COVID pandemic gave them a free rein to basically do whatever they wanted. And in many cases, and in many parts of the world, they did exactly that and imposed draconian, inhumane measures on the people. See New Zealand, Australia and Canada, to name just a few of the worst ones.
To protect the health system, we've got everybody locked down. We're going to move to a situation where, to protect the health system, we're going to lock out people who are not vaccinated and can be. If you're making the choice not to get vaccinated, then you're making the wrong choice. You're making the wrong choice. And for safety's sake, and for back to that point about how much work our nurses have to do, as this becomes absolutely a pandemic of the unvaccinated and we open everything up, it's not going to be safe for people who are not vaccinated to be roaming around the place spreading the virus.
We will share with you the most up-to-date information daily. You can trust us as a source of that information. You can also trust the Director General of Health and the Ministry of Health. For that information, do feel free to visit at any time to clarify any rumour you may hear, covid19.govt.nz. Otherwise, dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth. We will provide information frequently. We will share everything we can, everything else you see, a grain of salt.
You're going to be able to get your vaccine as soon as you turn 5. And I know you're excited and I know you're eager. In some places across the country, you can even start making your appointment now for shortly after your birthday. Protecting and standing up for our democracies, both internally and externally. And that means fighting disinformation. While social media has a profound positive effect on society, it also has a role in enabling harmful content, like hate speech and misinformation.
So the daily use of propaganda and disinformation try and undermine that democracy.
Yeah, I feel we're seeing a replay. It's the same wolf, different sheep's clothing. I was, as I've attempted to make plain over the years, up until the whole COVID debacle, I was as asleep and unaware and distracted as the next person, really. But once I became aware of what was going on, it has since been relatively easy to keep seeing what is unavoidable once you learn the trick of it. And one of the mantras by which I live at the moment is it's never about what they say it's about. And I think in the case of what was attempted during the COVID years was nothing to do with public health and all about trying to seize control of everything that totalitarian types want, which is to say money and control of people's lives and all of the rest of it. And they tried to do it via a fake, a hoax pandemic. And when it came to the unwanted medical procedure, we found out subsequently that while we had been frightened into the belief that if we didn't take it, Granny would die, that we were taking it on behalf of other people to stop, because it would stop transmission. But that was utterly bogus.
Absolutely.
And it was clear, the rapidity of rollout of home working, for example, it was clear that certain corporations were being briefed on a seismic event that was going to happen. In government, for example, we were pretty much every part of government was ready for home working. So Microsoft Teams had been deployed everywhere. This sort of groupware technology, it had been enabled with video technologies, the network infrastructure. Even when I was at 3Com and consulting for them years ago, we were working, 20 years ago, we were working actively on video streaming technology in order to support video calling, video conferencing back then. Right. Everybody thought video conferencing was niche and nobody was going to use it, in fact. And then 2020 happened, March 2020 happened, and everybody was using Zoom or Microsoft Teams. I was being actively lobbied during my time even though I didn't have any responsibility for this at all, by Zoom saying, why are you using Microsoft Teams? So there was a turf war going on. Really? And they all knew, they were all developing and rolling out capability because they clearly had been briefed. This was clearly a part of Agenda 2030. Even then, 10 years before they were supposedly going to achieve this thing. So the rollout of these technologies was in preparation for the COVID event. And of course, there's a straight line, from obviously 9/11, the 28 market crash, right through to the COVID event and right through to where we are now, 5 years on. And there is a kind of a creeping agenda that control and centralization is going to be required in order for you to live within the system.
Then you fast forward 4 or 5 years and you come to digital ID, and it's exactly the same, in as much as we're being told that this is the kind of, this is going to inoculate Britain against unwanted arrivals, unwanted immigration, and that's not what it's been designed for. Digital ID has got nothing to do with stopping new people arriving, and it's all about taking control of the people who are actually already living within the porous borders of this island.
Before anyone had heard of lockdowns or vaccine passports, the groundwork for digital ID was already being laid.
So in early 2019, they did this consultation on digital ID, right? And you might look back at that time and think, oh, maybe that was, because they knew the jab passports were coming, but you can't say that because that means that they planned the whole COVID thing. So anyway, you've got to unwrap the layers and go back. The infrastructure has been laid and put in place for longer than people, I think, even want to admit, because it means that, like the trust framework, 2019, the trust framework that they're using, that's the digital verification systems kind of rule book, and they call it a canonical record, this sort of trust framework. Right. It's like a sacred list to them of trusted providers and partners of this digital ID, like who's going to be asking you for your ID, whether it be private or public bodies. Right. So they've got this trust framework. 2019 again. And then 2021 was a public consultation on it for 1 month. Yeah. So all of this infrastructure has been laid.
Well, that data access bill, just because that's just gone through, that basically, for people at home, that essentially takes away all the checks and balances on your personal data, doesn't it? That's pretty much what that does.
Now, I don't want to dwell on the past and dwell on what's happened, but I want to remind you so we don't make the same mistakes again and allow these people to have such privileges once more. The push for a more digital world where every single thing you do is monitored, recorded, or tracked is something that should be a line in the sand for us all. We'd literally be handing over the keys of our freedom to those who, when we look at history, never respected our rights and freedoms in the first place. They fought for years to take them away, to reduce them at every opportunity. And now we're at the point where many, it seems, particularly many young people, will happily give up those freedoms if it means that the door will open automatically, or they can pay for their shopping without getting their wallet out. Honestly, I despair of people sometimes. But these are the people that we need to fight for, because we've seen through it. We know what's coming. They might be ignorant to it, but we're not, and we need to fight for them as much as we fight for ourselves.
Build back better. 3 words, 3 sixes. A promise for them, but a warning for us.
It's a very pertinent question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it build back better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
It's my plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better, written after coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better.
Growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset.
An unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better, a front for the conspiracy.
Build back better.
Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to building the future we need.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big effort to, some would say, to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
Basically, the left and the right, in terms of the controlling force working through them, are two cheeks on the same backside. And this is the thing. If you're going to bring in a great reset, which is what the whole idea is, a complete transformation of human society, well, you have to destroy the status quo. Because while the status quo is there and is not moving, your great reset can't transform society. And what Trump's role in this great reset, deep state agenda is to create and he's brilliant at it, chaos. Chaos and upheaval. We're doing it with the tariffs and in so many other ways, because he's destroying the status quo. This Doge thing and Musk and what have you, this all part of destroying the status quo and ushering in a dystopia based on control by artificial intelligence. Something I've been warning was the plan for decades. And what you are doing is this. The left has pretty much gone with the AI agenda, whereas the right was very skeptical of it. So you've got to bring them in so that they come on board with what they formerly would have pushed back on. And so you bring forward Trump, that is circled by this big tech oligarchy like Peter Thiel and others in Silicon Valley, Palantir. And you basically, through Trump, tell your base, your target audience, MAGA, what they want to hear. But that's the cover for bringing in the Great Reset and the AI society.
Thank you for incredible leadership, including getting this group together.
Thank you, Bill. That was very nice.
Well, thanks for hosting us. I mean, this is quite a group to get together. And, I think, all of the companies here are just making huge investments in the country in order to build out data centers and infrastructure to power the next wave of innovation. So it's, we don't often get together as the CEOs of the different companies, but it's good to see everyone.
I want to thank you for including me this evening. It's incredible to be among everyone here, particularly you and the First Lady. I've always enjoyed having dinner and interacting. I want to thank you for setting the tone such that we could make a major investment in the United States.
First of all, to echo the comments of Tim and others, thank you so much for getting us all together, and thank you for being such a pro-business, pro-innovation president. It's a very refreshing change.
This is a most incredible time. AI is going to change everything. You hear all of us saying that, but the fact that you are our president and you recognize this right away and you've unleashed American innovation and creativity.
Every network has a nerve center, every agenda a home address. Trace the lines of power and they converge here.
Well, it is my greatest shame to admit that Switzerland is the heart of darkness. We have the WHO, we have the UN, we have Gavi, we have Davos. All the globalist system worldwide gets its blood here from Switzerland. We are there beating heart of all that politics, of everything that destroys people's life. It starts and happens and is decided here in Switzerland. So Switzerland is the battleground of the freedom fight of our century. So for sure, yes, we are a country that should not exist.
While citizens debate freedom, the data architecture quietly expands.
Available on the internet. But most certainly your national health records aren't available on the internet. That stuff is not available, but that's very precious, very, very precious for your data, for your country, because you're using that data to improve population health and get better outcomes for individual citizens. So all of that data, and right now countries' data is fragmented. The problem is it's not like go to this database and here's all the data about my country. It's go to this 3,000 databases and here's all the information about my country. So but we know how to do that. You can pipe this data from these 3,000 separate data sources into a single unified database. And that's what we need to do. We need to layer on top of all of this fragmented data that we have about all this information we have about our country. And we need to take that and unify that into a single database. So when we ask questions, the data model has all the information it needs to answer the question, discover the insight, and recommend an action.
If they can't force, digital ID is the loss of self. If they achieve this, and certainly there were stealth activities within government and certain government groups, and the civil service obviously is centralist. It doesn't really matter what political party is in power. You know, the civil servants will have their way, and they're constantly running pilots and funding think tanks and doing all of this stuff to drive through a particular agenda. But digital ID was the thing that really drove me to distraction. So much so even that when I was with DIT, we had certain groups that were looking at digital ID technologies and supposedly supporting these companies coming into the United Kingdom. And of course, there's a lot of collaboration. And again, this is something that the book refers to. The collaboration between the Five Eyes network of intelligence agencies, essentially. And of course, Israel is normally in that pot vicariously through the United States. So digital ID technologies are being overtly forced by cybersecurity companies or companies acting under the guise of cybersecurity.
From global institutions to national parliaments, the agenda filters down through familiar faces and friendly slogans. The policies may seem to change, but the direction never does.
We cannot continue with business as usual, and change is inevitable. This is where technology, like digital ID, becomes critical. My institute's own analysis shows that introducing this in the UK would save at least $2 billion a year and likely more by reducing losses to fraud, improving tax collection, and better targeting of state support.
Tony Blair is an agenda contributor at the World Economic Forum. I know that you know this stuff, and I know that people watching might know this stuff, but from what I'm seeing in the mainstream and from what people are talking about who are allegedly campaigning against it, aren't talking about the fact that this has been a plan laid out for decades, specifically written very, very openly in 2015 with the announcement of the United Nations Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. Again, I know you know.
It's a fight to the death. If, for example, and we saw during the trucker protests in Canada, people suddenly being robbed of their ability to get access to their own money. And behind the technocratic movement is the PayPal mafia, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel at the head of that. But a number of members of the PayPal mafia is now active in the Trump administration. So there's no question that they're really going to forge ahead with this type of thing.
Every new layer of control arrives disguised as convenience. Most people won't see it as control at all. Just another tap, another scan, another way to make life easier.
I registered the other day with Wizz Air. By the way, they're a great airline. It's fantastic and everything. But in order to set yourself up an account with Wizz Air, they will scan your passport, and using NFC technology, you tap your phone against your passport, your biometric passport, in order to prove who you are, that you are who you say you are. That type of creep is happening all over the place.
And I think there's two things going on here. I think that the architecture for what is going on is being built and being deployed in the background while they get you to say, bloody brick card wallet, digital ID, I don't want, I'm going to fight against that. But it's the biometrics side of things that is happening with no pushback. So if you go to Europe from the 12th of October, you've got to have a facial recognition, fingerprints, iris scans. Okay, that's happening.
Yeah.
That's happening. You cannot get into the Schengen zone without submitting yourself to having that done and them retaining that. Why do you think they want that information? Why do you think they want the face scans and the iris stuff and all the rest of it? Because they need that to continue to build out the digital prison.
So digital ID, as has been said over and over, is like, might be seen as the key that locks the digital cage. And the infrastructure of the digital cage has been being built around us since I frankly don't know when, but for a long time. All of the pieces are in place, and if they can get everyone to take a digital ID, then the door clicks shut for all time.
I think they obviously require our consent. This is a matter of great importance to them, which means, and this is something that I would encourage people to think of it. If they are so desperate to get our consent, and they need our consent, which is evidently the case, because they're trying to coerce us all the time into adopting these new digital systems, whatever they might be, digital ID, and subsequently it will be, of course, digital programmable currency. They need us to consent to adopt it. It's clear that they do, which means we have the power.
Yeah, well, one of the other things they're using this digital ID for is to access services as well. So things like your tax returns and if you get benefits or your pension. So they could either take it out of your bank, your PAYE, or your benefits or your pension. So currently what we've got is we've got a real chance for a peaceful civil disobedience by not paying fines that are unjust. But that option could very well be taken away from us.
Yeah, and it feels like this is kind of a first step on the ladder, because, this in isolation, some people would argue, well, what's wrong with that? It actually makes people's lives easier. But when you have knowledge of the agenda and you know that this is just a stepping stone for what's next, and what's next will be allowed to happen because they've already got this information, so they can stop you going into supermarkets. I mean, there's been talks of that already, hasn't there? Things like self-service checkouts that we all see as convenient now and might get you through Tesco quicker, that actually the cameras and the things that they have on them are there so that further down the line when, actually you've had your meat allowance for the week, that digital ID is all connected to stop you from being able to live a free life and do things like resist, like you're saying there.
Digital ID is a network, and where various digital ID products, such as your driving license and your separate bank card, are able to share data on the back end of what Palantir, UK head of Palantir, Lewis Mosley, calls the back end, rather offhandedly, just saying, it's just the back end. Well, this is things like Palantir Gotham and Palantir Foundry, which are able to take data from any data source and bring it together and put it into a meaningful unified database or unified ledger, if it's blockchain, which it almost certainly will be. So this means that they can take things like the data from your driving license and link it in real time automatically to the data from your bank card, and also obviously to the data from your payment and utility bills, from anything you do, with regard to any kind of interaction that you have with the government through one login. This is the system. Digital ID it's called that ability for different sets of data sets to be able to intercommunicate is called interoperability. And that is what they have been trying to put together for the best, it is a decade now. The Bank for International Settlements, the United Nations have been obsessed with interoperability of digital, not only of data sets, but also of communication platforms, using standards like ISO 20022. These digital information exchange, and that particular one is for financial information exchanges, are being homogenized globally so that all data from every kind of digital activity that we do, whether that's paying online for something, or just swiping your card in a shop, or using your driving license to prove your age, or whatever, that can all be linked together into one manageable and interrogatable database and system That is digital ID.
So there's that going on. So it's not, so I think he wanted to cause this uproar. He wanted to cause this, oh my God, digital brick card wallet thing going on. We need to fight that. And everyone kind of has forgotten, actually, they're doing it anyway, right? We've already got the biometric. So, and the real thing is like biometric, because that's where they want to go with it. It's your fingerprint. It's your finger, because anyone can go, digital ID, oh, chuck my smartphone away. How's that going to work?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They want your face to be your fingerprint or your iris. Think Minority Report. Do you remember them little spider things that used to come and, So they want that, because then if you have to fingerprint to let yourself in, you can't erase your fingerprints or get some new eyes like in Minority Report. And if that's all linked to a central database that says, Gareth, you've been a very naughty boy and had 5 steaks this week, you ain't getting that door open on that fridge or getting into that supermarket. So I think there's that going on. And I think that anybody that stands against digital ID needs to understand that that encompasses the biometric side of things. The other side that I think is going on potentially, although I said when I mentioned it in my own video, I think maybe this is a lower probability, but I don't know now with everything that I've seen over the last couple of days. I wonder that if he made the announcement just to test how much pushback there was going to be, the biometrics is already running alongside it, but they can kind of, one of the things that they do is do this. They want to see what we're saying about it so that they can adjust their bloody marketing campaign to take account of all of what we're saying. But I think we have a real danger here of a national emergency situation arising out of something military, potentially, that we somehow are involved in. Now, we don't have to think too far about what that might be with everything that's going on in the world. We have an act called the Civil Contingencies Act. Go and have a look what can happen under that act if there's a national security issue. Look at what happened in the Second World War. What did people have? ID cards.
They did, yeah.
Rationing.
Ration cards and all sorts, yeah. Do you think, I mean, that could be Iran and Israel, because, Istanbul would come in on the side of Israel. It could be Russia, Ukraine. It could be China, Taiwan.
Well, look at the headlines that came out over the weekend. I've got it on my phone, which I won't get out to show you. There's I think it was the Sunday Express. I can't, but don't hold me to that. Could have been something else. Big colour headline all the way down the front page. Kind of like war is inevitable type headline, NATO's got to do this because of whatever. You get to that footing, you get told you're on a war footing, and then you start hearing about, Denmark's had its airspace violated and we've got to send this and we've got to do that. And you start thinking, so I don't know if they've left they wanted to test what the reaction was and how it would go. And they've always got the opportunity then to just go, well, do you know what? We're doing all the biometrics, whatever, that in the background. Once people wake up to that, they'll push back against that as well. And then we'll just bring the hammer down with a national emergency, national security, Civil Contingencies Act.
Maybe some terrorist attacks as well.
Why not throw them in?
Sleeper cells in the UK.
Put people into absolute fear so that they're begging the government, save us.
Digital ID is not one card, it's an interoperable network linking IDs, payments and records.
Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video, by the way, and the camera's always on. You don't turn it on and off. And by the way you turn it on, you can't turn it on. I'm going to the bathroom. Oracle, I need 2 minutes to take a bathroom break, and we'll turn it off. The truth is, we don't really turn it off. What we do is we record it so no one can see it, but no one can get into that recording. without a court order.
Everybody needs to understand that whatever man-made law is in place is not for our benefit.
No.
And they will just usurp it and have a get out. I mean, look at international law. What a joke.
Total waste
right?
of time.
So on that side of things, we need to be very aware of that. However, I have been a proponent of saying to people, stop calling for us to leave the ECHR at the moment. Do I love the ECHR? Do I love the Human Rights Act? Do I think it's everything that No, I don't, because I don't believe our rights are paper derived, okay? But we're in a system at the minute where until we get out of that system, and this is an ongoing battle, we have to try to use the tools that we've got, maybe to our advantage. And frankly, just go and have a look at the case law around Article 8, ECHR, right to privacy, family life, about retention of DNA, long-term retention of biometrics and all the rest of it. The case law, unless they're literally going to find some funky get out as to how this is so different, in my opinion, there's no way that they could get that through. Aside from if it's a national emergency.
None of them are hiding it. So it's not even a secret that it's a precursor to a social credit system. They have talked about, your club card points and stuff, like your loyalty points, so they get to know your behavior, what you buy. They have talked about your carbon footprint. They have talked about all of this very publicly. And if you read these documents, it's, diktat handed down from these NGOs and globalist organizations to governments all over the world. Without digital ID, they will not achieve their nonsense SDGs, their sustainable development goals. They will not. No. They can only get there by total control.
Well, this is something that we've been talking about for years. However, as conspiracy theories often do, they become conspiracy truths and conspiracy facts. And that is what we're seeing now, as it is on the government's website, that they want to bring in this digital ID. So what that was going to start off like, we were never sure, but they're actually going in hard and strong. So they are wanting to create a digital ID that will include your name, your date of birth, your home address, which is fairly standard stuff, except they also want to include your photos, your passport number, your driving license number, which they can give you access to what cars you drive, and also your transaction details. And that is all stated there on the government website.
In the parliament, only 6% of the members of parliament voted against the digital ID. Yes, the largest party of Switzerland, the so-called Swiss People's Party, which is controlled opposition, which are globalists, they said, yes, okay, we changed our mind, we are against it, but we do nothing in the campaign. We do not even do one single newsletter that we change our mind or something. They only do this to absorb the critical forces which we mobilized against all this digital ID and all this mass surveillance. So no, it's a fight. It was a fight, David against Goliath. And
Different faces, different voices, one shared red line. The question is whether enough people say no together.
Because digital ID is the hill to die on. This is not just a test like the jab passports. I don't even want to use the word vaccine, but they called it vaccine passports, so let's do that. Health passports. Yeah. When they tried to bring them about, we pushed back. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered. It was November of 2021, and it was the beginning of December. I think it was around about the 21st of November. We went and we took to the streets, and we en masse, we showed them that we weren't going to comply with this nonsense. And then obviously they had their technological issues and whatnot, but that was still just a test. So something I look back on and say, well, that was a bit of a win, actually, as was the NHS mandate pushback again.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think as long as you have a caveat of, I'm not going along with it unless, or I'm not going along with it, but if they do this, then just do it then, because you're going to in the end. Because they're going to try and make it difficult.
And
I'm the same as you.
And that's the other thing as well. I don't know about you, but I've always been a rip the plaster off kind of girl. Don't like this kind of take this off slowly. Let's have all the just rip it off, get it over and done with. And I'm like, listen, to anybody that says, yeah, but if I just go along with it now, I might get another year where I'm okay, or another 2 years where I'm okay, or another 3 years, or what. I'm telling you now, you go along with it, you're going to lose it all. So you might as well be prepared to lose it all straight away by standing against it. It's either the rip the plaster or the slow burn.
Thank you, Gareth, for your invitation here today to speak about this most important topic of our lifetime now. This is really the fight about the death of our civil liberties, of our freedom. So I urge everyone to stand up and fight now, as we did in Switzerland. It was a close call.
The only thing that we need to be is unite and join together. And we're at that point now, and I've heard you talk about it in a few of your other shows about the division, the political divisions at the moment. And I think that is obviously entirely engineered, because the more fractured and divided we are, the more successful they are when they run these programs.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
and you know, in my opinion, lockdown, the mandates, the masks, all of the unscientific nonsense that they forced upon people that people complied with was all a test of compliance. It was a test to see.
All we need is a campfire, some marshmallows, a few beers and some mates and good company. That's all we need. We can have a very, very happy life with just those basic things. So, you know,
100%.
people, you know, going down a non-digital route doesn't have to be awful. It can be, you know, we can have a lot of fun and have a better quality of life than we've got in the digital world.
Please say no to digital ID. 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 Please say no to digital ID.
What's happened since COVID, as you can see, is more and more people have started to grasp that this is not some made up as you go along system of control. It is actually very coldly calculated. And what I've been saying all these years is it's coldly calculated on a global level. There is a global network, what I call the global cult. And through that network, it imposes its will and its agenda on every country eventually, which is why during COVID, you had basically a global response that was the same. And here you now have, just by coincidence, all these countries now introducing digital ID. It's a global agenda instigated by a global network. And people like this guy, Keir Starmer, he's just a gopher. Trump is just a gopher. They're here today, gone tomorrow people. Whereas the cult network that's orchestrating it, or has orchestrated it through the decades and the centuries, is always there. And this is a real line in the sand. And if we allow it to be crossed, then what's the future of freedom? There isn't any, you know?
And there is no solution. There is no solution for that.
Well, the solution is simple. There's 8 billion people in the world, I'm told. And the number of people in full knowledge who are imposing this is, by comparison, a handful. And what happens is people get sold belief systems, calculatedly, belief systems, religious belief systems of all kinds, political belief systems, scientific belief systems, all of them. And once you've got belief systems, it's like a honeycomb in a beehive. They're all these belief systems, all isolated from each other, all competing with each other, and then you play them off. And if you look at what's happening in America, it's classic. The left is being manipulated by this cult. The right is being manipulated by this cult. And yet they have set the right at war with the left. And while people are fighting each other, they're not seeing that they're both being played by the same force. And until we realize that and put down the fault lines of division, agree to differ, but concentrate on the common threat, then we might have a chance. But while we're fighting among each other, it's divide and rule. Yeah. And so what you've got, you see, in America, you've got the right in power imposing itself on the left and using the left as the excuse to take away freedom. This guy's supposed to be of the left, and he's using the right to justify the destruction of freedom. And instead of saying, well, he's left and he's right, we should be saying, what's the outcome? Yes. Yeah. What is the outcome in both cases? Freedom disappears. Freedom of speech disappears. And if people watch the outcome and not the words, not the rhetoric, they'll see that actually, whether it's left, right, or center, they're going in the same direction.
Sort of like crypto, gold, silver, devices, what else? It's a device huge to us.
Well, I'm not going to advise anyone financially. That's up to them. All I'm saying is, while we're divided, systematically divided, they will rule.
Yeah, but the government controls the money, so that's it. If they impose the digital money, so there is no solution.
Well, that's the whole idea of the digital ID and the digital currency is the complete control of money. But people just have to look at the situation and decide individually what they want to do. What I'm saying is, from the big picture point of view, we're being played off against each other, and whether I don't care what color you are, black, white, sky blue, pink. We're all in the gun sights of this code, this global code. And while we're fighting each other, they're laughing at us. And it's time to stop. Otherwise, we're going to cross this line and it's going to be very difficult then.